Cheaters, are you ready?
Indeed.
All right, we're good to go.
All right, welcome to the Saturday night Proclin debates. These debates follow a 1v1 style with a moderator and a judge. This week's resolution will be gender is a social construct with Djeter as the affirmative and Mac as the negation. They will begin with their 5-minute speeches to open the debates. Djeter, with the affirmative, you will give yours first.
No? Okay.
Whenever you're ready.
Oh. I'm going to open up by making a clear distinction between
I think you might have just cut out for a second.
God damn it.
I did want to say that each debater has 3 minutes of time that they can use at any point to prepare what they're going to say. And you can use that whenever you want.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to open up by making a clear distinction between sex and gender. In biological sense, sex is real. It is on a spectrum with males on one side, females on the other, and everything in between being intersex. With all this said, I did not come here to debate about whether sex is a social construct, because it isn't. I came here to talk about gender. I'll be happy to have that discussion in the future. The topic today is gender, not sex. In order for us to get the most out of this discussion, we need to accept that fact that sex does not equal gender, and it is different from it, just as multiple credible institutions in the sciences and academia have. Gender is socially constructed norms of society constructs from people living in said society. And this is evident with multiple varying examples of different societies coming up with different examples of what they consider gender is and how many there are. From all continents and societies and civilizations, from the New World to the Old, there have been forms of like 2 genders to 3 to more. This is the case. I take this position on gender because it is the fact that gender is socially constructed, as I pointed out before, and we'll go into deeper nuance as we go. Not only that, but because I believe in freedom, and all people should be able to freely express themselves how they desire. And not have this age-old system of 2 genders forced on them by like the fucking, the European, like centric thing, Anyways, so that is my opening statement, I guess. So I will allow the negation to go.
With 1 minute and 55 seconds. That is Djeter's opening statement. Mac, if you'd like to give yours.
First, I kind of like to take a 10-second or 30 seconds of time off of my thing.
Yep.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
All right. So, only very recently in human history has the concept that gender is a social construct been widely accepted. However, despite the popularity of these beliefs, there is substantial evidence to suggest that the belief is not very accurate with reality. And for these reasons, I take the firmest negation of the resolution that gender is a social construct. Before I get into my contentions, I would first like to lay down some definitions. First, I will define the term social construct, and I will be using the Merriam-Webster's definition of an idea that has been created and accepted by the people in the society. I think that it would also be useful to define the term gender, which I will be using the Merriam-Webster's definition as the behavioral, cultural, or psychological traits typically associated with the sex. I understand my opponent has just clearly distinguished between gender and sex, and I will accept his definition that there is a distinction between the two, and I will not be arguing about the differences between the sexes from this point forward. I think that for my first contention, I would like to point out that the fact that gender is absolutely based in biology. My opponent argues that the traits that make up gender are due to social constructs. However, this completely ignores the biological aspects of naturally selected behavioral traits in order to better increase the fitness of our species during the primitive era. So, for my first subpoint of this contention, I will talk about how gender traits can be predicted by epigenetics. When talking about gender traits and whether they are a social construct or not, it would be important to recognize whether gender identities have tangible bases in biology. And according to Dr. Tuck C. Young, in his research paper, Epigenetic Algorithm Accurately Predicts Male Sex Orientation, published on the 8th of October in 2015, an algorithm using epigenetic information from 9 regions of the human genome can predict the sexual orientation of males with up to 70% accuracy. The researchers examined patterns of DNA methylation, a molecular modification to a DNA that affects when and how strongly a gene is expressed, across a genome in pairs of identical male twins. While identical twins have exactly the same genetic sequence, environmental factors lead to differences in how their DNA is methylated. Thus, by studying twins, the researchers could control for genetic differences and tease out the effect of methylation. In all, the study involved 37 pairs of twins in which one twin was homosexual and the other was heterosexual, and 10 pairs in which both twins were homosexual. This demonstrates that there is a biological aspect to sexual orientation and as a for prefix gender, as it can be predicted. And this is also illustrated in the article by Presna reviewing the paper produced called Gay Gene Debunked, Environment Influences Sexuality, published on the 10th of December of 2015. It says that this suggests that environmental factors that switch genes on and off and affect how cells read genes may have a significant influence on human sexuality. If gender traits can be predicted by biological standards, then that means that gender cannot entirely be a social construct and must have some biological components. My second subpoint is that there is a growing evidence to suggest that transgenderism and other gender identities have a strong basis in biology rather than something that can be changed on a whim. This is evidenced by a medical article produced by Joshua D. Safer, published by the Boston University Medical Center on the 13th of February 2015, in which it determines that that showed positive biological basis for gender identity. These included disorders of sexual development such as penile agenesis, anatomical differences such as gray and white matter studies, and steroid hormone genetics, such as genes associated with sex hormone receptors. They concluded that current data suggests a biological etiology for transgender identity. This data is further backed up by the National Library of Medicine, on which produced the conclusion that although the mechanisms remain to be determined, there is strong support in the literature for a biological basis of gender identity. As I demonstrated before, there seems to be a strong support of biological basis for gender, especially in the scientific and medical communities. My third subpoint is that there is evidence to suggest an effect on gender roles that arises out of natural selection and evolution. And according to Wikipedia in their page on ES theory produced by Baron Cohen, an explanation of autism sex differences, Baron Cohen presents several possible evolutionary psychological explanations for this sex difference. For example, he says that better empathizing may improve care of children, and that better empathy may also improve women's social networks, which may help in various ways with the caring of the child. On the other hand, he says that the systemizing may help males become good hunters and increase their social status by improving spatial navigation and the making and use of tools. Now, of course, any information from Wikipedia must be taken with a slight bit of skepticism due to the nature of Wikipedia. However, Wikipedia sources this information from the Baron Cohen Simon 2007 in chapter 16, where it emphasizes If I could use my 30 seconds of leeway here to summarize what has previously been stated, according to multiple scientific theories and investigations, there appears to be a biological component to gender and gender identities that is substantial. And for these reasons, I stand in the firmest negation to the resolution that gender is a social construct.
Okay. With 5 minutes and 25 seconds, that is Mac. We will now go into the questioning period because Jeter is taking the affirmative. He will ask the first question. He has, let's see here. I believe he has 1 minute and 30 seconds to do so. 1 minute and 25 seconds. Yeah.
Okay. You're taking the negation, correct? You're taking the stance that gender is not a social construct, correct?
That is correct. Or I'm taking the negation against the resolution that it is a social construct.
Okay. So it appears a lot of the stuff you're talking about with phenotypes and neurology, it seems like all this is like stuff to do with sex and not exactly the social construct, that stuff that gets into the discussion with gender, particularly gender. And I think I know what I guess that was my question.
So in answer to that question, gender is a very complex system of ideas, and in referring to the sexes and the biological differences between the sexes just isn't representative of gender, and that gender is something that includes behavioral traits, sexuality, and cultural differences between different people. And to say that it isn't based in biology is just completely inaccurate, or at least partially based in biology.
Okay, cool. But I don't think I've ever really said that's not based in biology, have I not?
The resolution is that it is a social construct, and by taking the affirmation, you would be saying that it is a social construct. However, in order for it to be a social construct, it has to be complete, as I defined before, it has to be completely made within a society and completely created by that society. But it can't be a social construct if it has basis in biology.
All right, cool. Thanks for clearing that up. I know I'm kind of stupid, but I won't.
If that is all for that question, then we move on to
I have no
Mac.
question.
Yeah,
No left.
we would move on to Mac, who is asking the next one.
Yeah, so you talked about in one of your arguments that you believe that all people should be able to choose about how they express themselves. But I don't understand why they have to express themselves through gender when there is science that says, or why would they have to express themselves through gender when science says that it's something that can't be changed?
Well, first off, there's nothing stopping me from wearing a dress. There's no scientific, fact that like makes the dress burn up when it's on me, And there's nothing from wearing makeup or any of that. Or a lot of these stuff that comes with presenting in a certain way, like that's not really science. Doesn't say you can't wear this or that because you have a penis, you know?
Is the time up by chance?
For your question, I believe you both still have plenty of response time.
Oh, I'll just I can concede the time. I don't really
go
have any
ahead.
other questions. Can we just move on to 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. So, do we go on to, sorry, 3 minute, what? You want to
we move on to the 3-minute period, and that 3-minute period would be Mr. DJ over here.
Okay. Yeah. Jeter, you would have a 3-minute period to give a statement or a response.
The response to what exactly?
The debate, to try to
just in general.
Yep. To
okay.
continue. Yep.
So I guess I'll start off by saying that, like, all through on different continents, there are different societies that have, more than one gender, because gender, it is socially constructed. There are more, it comes in different variations. Like, I'll give you an example. In Naples, in Italy, southern Italy, la femminioli, YOLO, the roughly little man, woman, refers to the biological males who dress as women and assume female gender roles in Neapolitan society. The station in society is, or was in the 19th century, privileged with rituals, marriages to one another, based on Greek mythology related to Hermaphroditus, Tarasius. Let's find another one. Here we go. The Hiras from South Asia, India, pretty much. In South Asian cultures, including India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, Hiras were psychological males who were adopted into the feminine gender identity, women's clothing, and other feminine gender roles. In the past, the term referred to the eunuchs of those born of intersex or with indeterminate genitalia. Most Hiras do not consider themselves to be men or women or transgender, but a distinct third gender tradition. A distinct third gender of their culture. Let me get to one more here. The Mu people of Mixtec, Mexico, or Zapotec, whatever. The Mu are generally males who either dress as women or dress as males with makeup. They may not adopt a feminine social roles, such as working in embroidery, but many also have white-collar careers in Mexico. In recent decades, the term has come to apply to gay men, probably a bit problematically. So as we can see throughout, different societies, it is up to the how the societies come up, how they form, and what traditions and culture they have, and sometimes it has a lot more than two genders, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Get the floor.
Mac, what your response?
Am I completed? So first off, I doing a little bit of an on-time roadmap here. I will first be going over my opponent's contentions, and then I will be going over to strengthen my own contentions, should there be time left enough to do so. Now, my opponent's main argument throughout this entire 3-minute speech was that gender identity is something that is different around the world, and that there are different societies that have different gender identities, and that it can't be boggled down into the two gender identities that we commonly see in our society today. And my rebuttal to that would be that gender identity is an extremely complex and issue, and it is extremely probable, in my opinion, that social factors play some role in how a gender identity of a society is developed. But to say that it is a social construct would imply, as I had defined before, that it is built and is made entirely from a society, which, as I have provided evidence against the fact that gender and gender identities have evolutionary backgrounds from natural selection, and they have backgrounds in that something that can't be changed, and they have backgrounds in that something that can be predicted by biological components and by our current understanding of biology. Now, to say that if gender was a social construct and if it was something that could be changed, be in a society just willy-nilly, these things wouldn't be true, because of the fact that if if the gender was such a willy-nilly thing you could change, homosexuals wouldn't be able to be predicted by science with a 70% accuracy. Transgenderism in the modern literature wouldn't be something that could be helped treat. Evolutionary theory wouldn't be able to predict the behavioral traits associated with the traditional gender roles. And these things, if it was a social construct, these things wouldn't be able to be true. Now that I'm done rebutting my opponent's contentions, I will quickly go on to strengthen my own contentions. As this debate has been going on, I have my contentions still seem to stand strong, as they haven't exactly been refuted, and that they still hold water, and they will continue to flow through this debate. I concede my time.
Okay. And then we can continue with a 3-minute response from DJ.
Hang on.
Yeah, you can use your time to prepare.
What?
Mau.
Everybody could keep themselves muted, please.
Okay, so I am completely perplexed by what my opponent is presenting, like predicting homosexuality. What? Like, I'm sorry, but I have no idea what exactly you're presenting here.
Is that the end of your response?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. Are y'all about ready to move into end speeches?
I think I have my 3 minutes. I guess I could respond to that by.
Okay.
You should. You really should.
Oh yeah. Please. Let's explain everything.
Okay, so if my contentions were that homosexuality could be predicted by epigenetic algorithms, and this was sourced by a medical article or medical journal published by Dr. Tak Signan, in which he was able to predict the someone's sexual orientation with up to a 70% accuracy, using changes in the genes between epigenetic twins. My second sub point was that that there is growing evidence to suggest that transgenderism and other gender identities have strong bases in biology, and that there's something that just can't be changed. My third sub point was that there is evidence to suggest that gender roles have been impacted by natural selection and evolution, and that there is explanatory factors beyond social constructs that would help explain why we have the gender roles. I will concede my time.
Jeter, if you'd like to respond.
So the stuff with epigenetics, is that what you're getting the predicting homosexuality from? I'm asking a question. So can you respond?
Yeah. So the actual article was able to predict someone's sexual orientation, or the medical journal was able to predict sexual orientation with up to a 70% accuracy regarding homosexuality and heterosexuality.
Using epigenetics?
I could go into the actual explanation of it, where if I may scroll up here, where identical twins with exactly the same genetic sequences, where they got 37 pairs of twins in which one of the twin was homosexual and the other was heterosexual, and they also got a control group of 10 pairs of twins in which they were homosexual, or with both of the twins were homosexual, and they were able to build an algorithm which predicted the sexual orientation of the males with up to a 70% accuracy. And I also, from an article reviewing the paper published in the 10th of December of 2015, says that this suggests that environmental factors that switch genes on and off and affect how cells read the genes may have a significant influence on human sexuality. If that answers the question.
I guess it does, but it's just this is with like genetics. I don't really see how this equates to gender.
So it equates to gender because gender doesn't refer to the physical differences of humans. Gender refers to the behavioral, cultural, and psychological differences between the people, and that would include human sexuality and sexual orientation, which are considered to be genders, such as asexual, homosexual, transgender. These are genders, and a lot of them are completely based on the difference in sexual orientation between individuals, and there's evidence to suggest that these things aren't something that can just be changed willy-nilly, and that there's a large basis in biology for these being legitimate things and not social constructs.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, absolutely. So gender or sex refers to the the physical differences between males and females, such as a male has a penis and a female has whatever. It doesn't really the physical differences, but gender refers to a multiple degree of behavioral characteristics, uh, psychological characteristics, and cultural characteristics, which are influenced in the sexes, and sexual orientation falls under those principles of gender. And there's leading scientific evidence to suggest that gender isn't something that can be changed and is something that is absolutely based in biology. And I've provided plenty of evidence to suggest that these things are things that can be biologically predicted, and that there is a large amount of evidence to suggest that conditions such as transgenderism have absolute basis in biology.
Okay, so you're saying gender, and by gender you mean like the what's it? God, what's the words you used?
Behavioral, cultural, and psychological characteristics.
Yeah, stuff like that is formed by the what was it?
Is based in biology in some degree.
In some degree. So in the other
Yes.
degree, it's based on environmental factors that can form the said, people to have a third gender. No, shit. Hang on.
Is this the questioning period? I have to quickly ask.
This is just the back and forth section. We can continue to the end speeches whenever you're ready.
Oh no, I'm fine with the back and forth. I was just questioning at what point in the debate we were at. In reference to what you argued. So to argue, my entire argument is that to say that gender is something that is a social construct would be to argue that it is something that is created by a society, and that using gender in these contexts is just absolutely inaccurate, because despite the fact that there are social factors which would influence gender, there is absolutely biological factors that also influence someone's sexual orientation, their behavioral and cultural characteristics that are beyond what is gained in a society.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that. So
Okay, so then I think we should move on to the end speeches. Is that fine with you?
oh wait. I ain't done yet.
Oh, okay.
So you do acknowledge that at a
No,
point.
we're not.
What?
I was gonna say we're not done yet. There's people just started talking. Sorry, continue.
Yes, I'm continuing. So you acknowledge that at a point there is a part of a gender that is socially constructed, all right? You acknowledge that, and I guess I can concede that. So gender is not entirely socially constructed, but I would love to cite this article. What's it called? Oh, fucking. Does not the Manhattan Institute. Finally, sorry. So this article states that it does not, while there is some evidence to support the fact that gender does have some basis in biology, it does not it does not like go against the idea of a transgender ism, or like, or you know what I mean, LGBT plus non-gender conforming people, transgender, yeah. Give me a minute.
You may use some of your allotted time.
Do. Okay. So the article states that it does not completely go against. It does not go against the ideas that people can transition from one gender to another, because it is completely possible. I mean, just look a before and after picture of Buck Angel, other people. So yes, I will. I guess I can concede the fact that there may be some basis in biology, but that does not mean transgender people, not gender non-conforming people, intersex people, are invalid, all right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's not what I'm arguing. My argument is that there's a lot of evidence to suggest that gender is based in biology. Now, to what degree is it based in biology? That's a tough question to answer. And because to test to what degree something is based in biology, there's no exact quantifiable way. But what I do know is that there is a substantial amount of evidence to suggest that sexual orientation is something that can be predicted. Uh, Transgenderism is something that is based in biology, and that when you treat people as if it is based in biology, it actually improves their lives. And as according to my source, the people and that there is an evolutionary explanation for gender roles in a society, and that behavioral traits can and do get naturally selected. And so to suggest that these things are completely created by a society and that there's something you can just change willy-nilly is something that as I argue, is extremely ludicrous. Is it all right if we move on to the 5-minute end speeches?
Oh, sure.
That's cool.
Yeah, sure.
Jeter, if you'd like to give yours.
All right, yeah. Hold on.
You have 30 seconds of prep time.
So hopefully, with everything I've said today, I've presented enough points to let people in the audience come to terms with the existence of transgender people, non-conforming, all that. I will concede that maybe gender is partially put in place by biology. And, my opponent is correct when he says this is an incredibly, what's the word? Complex. Yeah, complex topic. This is an incredibly complex topic. We're not all PhD majors. We're just lowly virgins at home in our computer debating stuff. But I digress. So yes, but I will state that just because that is the fact, and just because I have conceded does not mean that the existence of these people are invalid. They are not. They are incredibly validated and supported by multiple credible organizations like the American Psychological Association, the American Medical Association, American Psychoanalytic Association, the United Kingdom's National Health Service, Human Rights Campaign, and such. So, yeah, that is my time. I load it to my opponent. They can go.
With your end speech of 1 minute and 40 seconds, we will go on to Max.
So I won't take much time here. I just want to illustrate why I think that Biggest Mac has won the debate here today, and why I think my opponent has lost the actual debate. So first off, I would like to go and strengthen my own contentions, and then I will be going to show how my opponent's contentions should not win the debate. My own all of my contentions, that being my first contention, in which I illustrate that gender is something that is based in biology, and all of the subpoints following through, in which I use to support that contention. That being my subpoint A, in which I show that homosexuality is something that can be predicted with up to a 70% accuracy. My second subpoint, where I show that transgenderism is something that can be predicted, or not predicted, but something that has a lot of basis in biology. and that it's something that you can't just become transgender. It's something that is absolutely based in your biology. My third sub point in which I illustrate that there are evolutionary and traits that are theorized to be naturally selected for the different gender roles, and this is a explanation for how gender roles did develop. I think that all of these contentions have held strong and haven't been refuted throughout this debate. That these contentions should flow through, and on this alone, I should win the debate. However, I will go on to show why I think my opponent's arguments are flawed. My opponent argued that all people should be able to choose how they express themselves, and I refuted that point with that they didn't have to express it through gender, which is something that has been shown through modern science that is something that can't be changed. He talked about how gender identity is something, or gender roles have been different throughout societies, and I refuted that by talking about how that doesn't refute the point about how it is that there is evidence to suggest that it is based in biology in some way. I think that I refuted all of my opponent's points and that none of his points flow through. I would also like to demonstrate that all of the definitions that were being used here today haven't been refuted, so that my definitions do hold strong still. And for these reasons, I should win the debate.
With 2 minutes and 46 seconds. That is Mac's end speech, and we can move on to Blue for the verdict.
Hello. Okay. So, first of all, I believe that, as Max said, I do believe that Mac has won this specific debate due to the fact that overall he basically has provided more sources. It does appear that he was confident in his resolution. He spoke facts that he has obviously researched on. Jeter did do well with speaking his opinion and all of the facts that he presented, but I do believe that on the level of basically just the level of knowledge presented in each argument, I believe that Mac has won the debate.
All right, based.
That's it.
All right, so I gotta go. I know I'm not. I'm terrible at this.
Thanks, Peter, for the debate.
I'll get better.
Oh,
But yeah, I
oh,
gotta
did
go.
good.
For
Love you both. Bye.
Cool. We can open this up to anybody who wants to have a discussion. I'll start off. Gender is like a bunch of different things. There's like gender identity and gender roles, which are completely social constructs, and then there is biological gender, which Mac is talking about, which is something that you can like determine and has a basis in the reality of genetics and how those are expressed. But I think I could, from the
all right,
opposing
American
side,
Democratic
still
Party,
argue
you here.
debate.
Yo, what's up?
Debate winner, don't interrupt.
Hey,
me.
everyone, come laugh at this person.
Green, continue your point. Sorry about that.
That's not very silly.
You got muted.
Okay.
I'll mute myself.
Yeah, I was saying that the biological aspect, while it has a basis in genetics, still any like classification of gender therein is a social construct. So
Okay.
it's like there's lots of social constructs that are based, on real things, just initially, but that doesn't make them like less.
And if I may rebut Green's point, I did provide evidence to suggest that their gender, or not even biological gender, but behavioral traits associated with the gender and the sexes, have been evolutionary selected, and that has played a role.
Oh yeah, it's definitely played a role. It's just how are we defining gender here as a as like a physical construct or a manifestation, and that's the debate. So Also, Jeter like full conceded, so
That's the first one we've had.
yeah. So it wasn't really like a hard pick there, but it was an interesting discussion at least.
I think both did good. I think that just Mac went ham on sources in journalism.
Yeah, it's definitely it is more experience first and foremost.
I feel like Jeter could have done a little bit better. Well, he could have done a lot better with just more experience. I feel like he really did believe what he was saying. He just needed to know how to convey it in a debate format. My personal opinion on this is I do agree with Mac, and I also would disagree with Jeter's point that gender is not linked to biology. It definitely is. Your gender is based on what sex you have.
Yeah.
Or there's at least some basis on your gender identity and sex, and there's some correlation between the two that isn't entirely a social construct. Does anybody else have any comments?
Let me unmute. Debate went really quick. I already warned him in DMs. So, and we got Copium here to talk.
Copium.
So.
You
Copium.
missed the debate.
My favorite
Are we still streaming? Should we if we're gonna end the discussion here?
Well, I don't know. That's what I was asking. If somebody else.
That's just what I'm asking. If we're gonna continue with the gender as a social construct discussion, if anybody wants to.
What's going on?
We just finished a debate.
I missed it.
In which Mac
You missed it by about 40 seconds.
The affirmative that gender is not, he won the negation against gender is a social construct. So he debated that it's not.
Well,
it's based in like biology in some sense, and provided more sources and whatnot.
Can I get like a rundown, just like a quick one of like what
You want
biology?
me to provide? I have my contentions all written down. You want me to give them to you?
Just like a quick run through, nothing special.
Yeah. So I only had one main contention, and that was that gender is based in biology. And I had 3 subpoints, in which my first subpoint analyzed that that epigenetic algorithms have been able to pretty accurately depict or predict male sexual orientation of up to 70% accuracy. My second subpoint was that from a medical article that showed that there is increasing evidence to suggest that gender identities and transgenderism have a extreme basis in biology. And my third subpoint was that there is evolutionary and natural selection factors that do take into account when regarding gender roles and how they developed throughout history.
So, what would be your explanation to people that are do identify as like non-binary, that don't identify male or female? Like, what is your explanation behind that?
So my explanation would be that gender is like an extremely. My explanation to that would be that when talking about populations, there's always going to be outliers, and that even if there are evolutionary and naturally selected factors that do play a role, that there are obviously going to be social factors that play a role, and that this concept of the male and the female is going to be affected by those social factors. But to say that it is a social construct would imply that it is created by a society, when that is not entirely true.
When you're referencing biology, no, this is like due to like more, I guess, social terms in regards of like the world we're living in now, right? Not like those kind of terms, but like there's a difference, at least like widely accepted by people, that the difference between sex and gender is sex would be something that like you're born as, and gender is something you identify as. And I feel like that's more of where the gender as a social construct is coming from.
And I
I
use
don't think
the
it's necessarily like a.
So my definitions for sex and gender, or I didn't define sex because I wasn't really talking about sex, but I was talking about gender, which was that behavioral, cultural, and psychological differences between people in regards to how they identify. And the thing is that those things are entirely social constructs, and there's evidence to suggest that they have a basis in biology.
Wait, did you say cultural? So like cultures defining what is male and what is female? Because
Defining,
cultures because if we're going back to cultures, like that's kind of bad excuse for it, because we didn't understand chromosomes existed until way later, and at least in the humans life period. So we were deciding it based on what's between your legs, and we didn't really have an explanation if there was two.
Well,
But
that's
again,
the
that's
thing.
more getting into sex. But
I showed that there was evolutionary effects on the way that these cultural gender roles did develop, and that there are, as I was saying, that there are evolutionary effects on how these cultural roles and how these gender roles did develop.
mm-hmm. Did you post these things in VC chat, like the sources that you have? Can I look at them real
No,
quick?
but I can give you. They're
No.
kind of medical journals, so they're not very like articles. So
Uh-huh.
one of them was the one I'm specifically talking about here is the Baron / Cohen empathizing / systemizing theory, which presents several possible evolutionary psychological explanations for the cultural difference between the sexes. For example, he says that better empathizing may improve care of children, and that better empathy may also improve women's social network, which may help in various ways with caring of children. On the other hand, he says that systemizing may help males become good hunters and increase their social status by improving spatial navigation and the making and use of tools. So, if somebody had these more of these traits than the other, then they would be better adapted to their situation and would be naturally selected to pass on their gene.
Again, this sounds like sex. This doesn't necessarily sound like gender. Gender would be something like well, I guess like gender is really defined by society, or at least like what it supports behind, right? So like boys have blue, girls have pink, but like what we start learning about what gender really is that it doesn't apply. It's not a universal law. And with things like these, you can't just go off like a per capita or like this many percent of people. You have to account for like every single person.
Yeah,
To say that humans have like 5 toes, like you can't say yes, that's true because a majority of humans have 5 toes.
I'll explain
No.
why this isn't sex, because this is referring to the behavioral characteristics between.
Oh, behavior. Okay, so
This is behavior.
This one's really difficult because again, that can also apply to like again, this again just sounds like sex because the at least the modernized definition of both is sex is what you're born as, gender is what you identify to be. And that might not be the case in like 2015 or behind that. But that just kind of seems to be the case. That like the definition of gender is changing, therefore gender is becoming a social construct, while sex is something more defined. So I mean like the topic of this debate is
yeah, I talked about how there is a difference between gender roles, gender identity, and a biological gender, only the latter of which
and even gender roles are stereotyped by a large majority of people. So even then,
so
again, when you're talking about gender being a spectrum, you can't use majority because
but the
spectrums include majorities and minorities.
Natural selection affects populations and not individuals. So when I talk about how gender roles have been affected by biology and by natural laws such as natural selection, It's referring to populations because that's what the natural law affects. You can't just say, well, look at this non-binary person. They don't abide by your gender roles. It's like saying it like.
So what is
because
the
you-
explanation that you give to them?
What
Are
is
you
the
saying like are they mentally ill? Like why
No,
are
I'm
they
saying
that
that
way?
I'm saying that like evolution and natural selection affects populations and not individuals. So if the gender roles would be, if something like empathy would be naturally selected for those who bear children because it becomes more beneficial for them to survive if they care for the children that if they care for the children better, then that's not like making a difference between sex. That's showing how gender roles can be influenced by natural selection and that these behavioral traits between those roles will be naturally selected.
Gender roles are more defined by the society, wouldn't you agree? More than it
I'd
is
say that that's an
natural.
extremely tricky thing to quantify. So I couldn't say whether or not natural selection has more of an impact than any societal. I recognize that both have an impact, but to say that one is but to say that it's a social construct would imply that it is purely based in the society and it was created by the society rather than a impact between the two.
So kind of like in nature versus nurture, you're arguing that it's like both. That it's the nature of the man to be protective. It's just a society that shows to what degree.
I guess that could be the argument, yeah.
Okay. I don't know, like it's very difficult because there are a wide range of cultures, and I'm not very familiar with them myself. But like the vast quantities and differences, for instance, like Japanese culture, like not all of them, like their culture isn't as much as like the Westernized, where it was about being really big and strong. It was more about strength through uh, mental strength and emotional strength. Like being a man in Japan was the same as being a man in Europe. So, um, to say that gender roles are like defined by biological like a biological explanation, that would have to it would have to be quantifying like the majority in every society, but that's just not the case. Again, Japan is a good example. Some of the ancient Scandinavian countries would be another really good example. Women were revered as warriors just as much as men were, and they were shown to be just as physically capable. Another example would be uh Greek, the Romans, like they all have the gender defying roles was very muddy because they understood that you could really do whatever the fuck you want and it wouldn't matter. Joan of Arc was another really good one, or another really good example. Like she behaved just like a man, right? And nobody decided that she should behave like. I mean, I'd imagine that people were like, "You should behave like a woman," but I mean, it seems like in every society, we kind of tried to define what is a man and or what is a woman or what genders are and what genders do and do not exist. Um, Again, this is all muddied in like uh, ev- evolving definitions, right? Because definitions for every word has evolved. The word gay, for instance, right? Like gay has now evolved into meaning homosexuality. Um, so again, the topic of this debate is just very because gender is more becoming of like what you identify as. So like a trans woman to a man would be gender identification. Um, and there has to be an explanation to like non-binary people. So you would either have to say that A, they're mentally ill, or B, that gender is a spectrum and that like this uh one or the other doesn't really work out.
I mean, so my response to that, I mean, I did provide plenty of evidence to suggest that gender identity, such as and sexual orientation, is something that you can't change. It's literally something that you cannot. You are kind of born with it.
Wait, I wanted to
And
ask that. You're talking about sexual orientation, like being straight or gay. What does that have to do with gender?
like because sexual orientation, like something like being gay or homosexuality, these things are genders. And they almost entirely agree with the sexual orientation of the person and nothing else.
You're kind of cutting out a little bit. I'm not sure. I didn't really get all that.
I kind of gotta go, but I'll be back in a bit.
Okay.
Cool. I guess with that we can end the discussion on whether gender is a social construct and end the stream if it's still going.
Yes, sir.
Peace out, everybody.